Hello everyone, Irish Warlock here, and today's video is a breakdown of the 22-minute gameplay that IGN shared of Dragon Age the Veilguard. So we're just going to go through it, see what we can find, any bits to figure out about Veilguard, or any little hints we can just pick out of it. A few things before we get started. One, I am going to be talking over Corinne Bush and John Epler, who are showing this game off, and the dialogue as well, so you may miss some parts. So if you haven't actually watched this video yet, go over to IGN, watch it there, and then come back here. Also, this video has quite a bit of spoilers, so if you want to go into Veilguard completely blind, I'd recommend not watching this video, as much as I would love for you to watch it, obviously. Now let's get started.
What's up, everybody? I'm Kat Bailey, and this is our extended look at Dragon Age the Veilguard's gameplay. I'm here with BioWare lead developers Corinne Bush and John Epler. Corinne.
Okay, so we'll stop right here just to kick things off. This video is going to take place in 3 locations: the Lighthouse, the Crossroads, and the Hossberg Wetlands, and we're starting here in the Lighthouse, which is obviously our base of operations. And this room here is the meditation chamber, and we can tell that from up here. So when you go around into different areas on the map, it'll flag up at the top what area you're in, and I think that is actually really handy to have. This area also seems to be by this symbol here. Looks like a closet, so I guess this is where we change our outfits when we're here at the lighthouse. Also, big ass fish tank in the fade, really cool. Hopefully it's not like Mass Effect 2 where we have to feed the fish, because I will definitely be coming back here to a lot of dead fish if I have to. My guess is, since this is called a meditation chamber, it's probably got some sort of important gameplay aspect. My guess is, if we want to talk to Solus, this is where we come.
And what are we looking at today?
Hey y'all, so today we're going to be helping out one of our companions, Darvin. This is part of his personal arc to rescue the griffins long thought extinct. We're going to take a quick journey
so
through
Asan
the
is
lighthouse,
not
your
the
base of
only griffin.
operations.
Actually, first of all, this looks so cool. I love this weird kind of stone structure in the middle. I love all these floating books going around the library. It is so cool. We can also see here in the middle of the map, there's a symbol for a table. I wonder what that's for. Maybe it's to like summon our companions to us. And got Darvin's symbol as well at the top there. So obviously that's where he is if you want to find him and chat to him. But yes, Darvin's quest is to find missing griffins. So Asan is not the only griffin. If you've read Dragon Age The Last Flight, which is one of the last novels to come out, it's not the last novel, it's the second last novel to come out. That takes place over 2 time periods. The modern time period, just before Dragon Age Inquisition starts, and the kind of flashback time period, which makes up most of the book. And that part is set during the Fourth Blight, with the end of the book showing how griffins, which were the mounts for Grey Wardens, went extinct. And then the modern part of the book ends with the main characters finding a bunch of preserved griffin eggs, which begin to hatch. So I think in the Discord Q&As where they confirmed, but I think we all knew, Asan was one of those griffins. And it seems that the other griffins from that clutch, his brothers and sisters, are still alive, and they're just missing, and it is Darvin's responsibility to find them. And I wonder how Darvin got kind of lumped with Asan. Like, was it Asan's choice? Did he see Darvin and just bond with him? Or was Darvin maybe given an order by senior wardens and they're like, hey, all these griffins are going missing. This is the last one. You're kind of competent at your job. Please look after him. I wonder though. I suppose though we will probably find it out at some point.
We're going to head into the Crossroads and make our way to the dark swamps.
The
of
Crossroads
Hossberg
is coming back,
Wetlands.
which I'm pretty sure we knew, but I'm not entirely sure if we did.
This is your base of operations that you inherited willingly or unwillingly from Solus. It
Oh,
is
it just looks
located in
so
the Fade.
beautiful.
It's where Solus was able to start planning his rebellion against the Elven gods millennia ago. Right now, you and your team have occupied it, started to build it, started to shape itself around your personality. As Corinne mentioned, we are going to go talk to Darvin, which is...
So yeah, this is the lighthouse. This is our base of operations, our new camp, our new Skyhold, our new Normandy. So this seems to be the main structure of the lighthouse here, the actual lighthouse, and it's where the library meditation chamber is. You can see there were some stairs leading up, and I think later on you'll see some stairs leading down. I wonder if our own personal quarters are probably up here somewhere. And by the looks of it, each of our companions, back a second. Yeah, each of our companions has like their own different buildings where they get to live and inhabit, and it's kind of customized around them. I'll get a better shot of it in a second. There's some floating islands as well. So I wonder, are they just there for design? Do they become accessible when the story progresses? Do they become accessible when we get new companions? So like hypothetically, maybe that's Lucanus's home up there, but it's not connected to us because maybe in this build they haven't recruited Lucanus, and when they do, that island maybe grows a path that connects it to the rest of the lighthouse, or it moves down. I don't know. Obviously, I don't know. It's just a guess. They also said when we move in, we make it our own. They've definitely said there is some customization. I just wonder how much. Like, I really liked that Skyhold was very customizable. Like, you could choose the general decor, the banners, your throne, and all that. Obviously, the customization wasn't much. It was really just surface level, and I would have liked if there was a bit more, like, being able to customize all of Skyhold, not just like certain small areas. But it was still quite enjoyable, and I wonder how customizable the lighthouse is. I hope there is at least something, like even just small little bits here and there. We know from the Discord Q&A that you can give gifts to your companions, but it's a bit more like Dragon Age 2, where you can find gifts out in the world that are key to specific companions for like specific reasons, I guess. And when you give them a gift, it actually appears in their quarters. So if you give them, so when you go back to them, you'll actually say, "Oh yeah, I remember when I gave you that at the start of the game." So I wonder, is that kind of the extent of the customization for the lighthouse, or can we see maybe a little bit more? Hopefully, a little bit more.
Around your personality. As Corinne mentioned, we are going to go talk to Darvin, which
It is just so beautiful, though.
located up above. And each of these spaces kind of shapes itself around your companions as they live there, as they basically spend their arcs in those rooms.
And we see here the glowing light above indicates Davrin's ready for us. Let's check in with
That is brilliant. I love that we now know when our companion specifically wants to talk to us. Because if you played Dragon Age Inquisition, you would just run around all of Skyhold every time you got back to see if a unique cutscene triggered. And that could be a bit infuriating, running around talking to everyone every single time and nothing happening. I do wonder though, if you go in and talk to someone when the light isn't on and they don't want to specifically talk to you, like, am I still able to talk to them? Like, it's gonna be like Dragon Age 2. So I wonder, like, if I go up to Harding and the light's not on outside of her quarters, will she just give me a generic line like, "Hey, how are you?" or "Wow, this place is really weird"? Or will I get to open a bit of dialogue with her, but I just kind of get a bit of a limited questions I can ask her, like in Dragon Age Inquisition, where I can be like, "Hey, Harding, tell me about the Inquisition and tell me about Solus because you knew him." But then when the light's on and you go talk to her, it triggers a cutscene that's important to the story and her character development. We also know from the Discord Q&A that the companions aren't just confined to their own buildings. They do actually move around the lighthouse a little bit and interact with each other too, which sounds very similar to what they do in Mass Effect 3. You might remember in some points you'd go into like the bar on the Normandy and Garrus and Liara would be there and they'd be talking about Garrus's adventures as Archangel, or Garrus, another random crew member, and Javik would be there, and Garrus and the crew member would be explaining to Javik like all the history of the Milky Way since he went into stasis and how like the Krogan rebellions and the Rachni and the first contact with Turians and humans and how that went on. So I'm assuming when they said, "Oh, the companions do move around and interact with each other a little bit," that that's what they mean. You can find Emmerich and Lucanus sitting together in the library, and Emmerich is telling Lucanus about his role in the Mornwatch. Hopefully that's what they do, because I do really like that, as it kind of helps the characters grow and develop and you learn a bit more about them without actually having to interact with them.
him.
Oh, Hassan is so cute.
Got a message. A place called the Cauldron was attacked.
That's some sort of Grey Warden tavern.
It's a secret warden readout. No idea what goes on there.
Then why are you involved?
Because whatever attacked it sounds like the Gloomhowler.
Right, let us stop here for a second. So, the Cauldron. Did a bit of research, couldn't find anything. Pretty sure it's not been mentioned before. If it has, I mean, there's a whole lot of Dragon Age lore. I could easily have missed some of it. But I wonder if it's like the prison in the Vermark Mountains from the Dragon Age 2 DLC, The Legacy. If you're not familiar with that prison, that is where Crifius was held by the Grey Wardens, and Crifius is one of the first Darkspawn. The Darkspawn are going to play a big role in this game, so I imagine, or I hope I should probably say, that the first Darkspawn are going to play a role again. We do know that by the end of Inquisition, Crifius is defeated. Possibly still exists in the Fade somewhere, but at least physically he is dead. But Altar the Architect is still wandering around the place doing stuff, and the other first Darkspawn are most likely still around. I think it's in Inquisition where you can pick up a Codex entry. I'm 99% sure it's Inquisition, where some dwarves talk about seeing some very tall talking Darkspawn getting into an argument with each other, and then one of them killing the others and then eating the others, which is horrific, obviously. But even if that is the case, we know from seeing bits of Dragon Age Inquisition that Corypheus came back whenever he was killed. He would just go and inhabit the body of a Grey Warden. And we know that also from the Dragon Age 2 DLC, The Legacy. So, it's reasonable to assume that the other first Darkspawn can do this. So I wonder if the Cauldron is a prison used to hold one of these other first Darkspawn, and maybe he's a potential ally or a potential villain, a servant of the Evanuris or something. I don't know. Personally, I just really want the first Darkspawn to appear again. Now, Darvin says he's hunting something called the Gloomhowler. Breen is going to talk a bit more about the Gloomhowler in a second here. Essentially, it's Darvin's nemesis and it's captured the other griffins. Couldn't find anything on Gloomhowler either, so it is a new entry for Dragon Age the Veilguard. The closest I could find is in Dragon Age Inquisition, there is a dragon called the Sandy Howler. So I wonder if it's somewhat linked to that or if it's some sort of dragon, but at the moment, no clue what it could be. We know it is also hunting Grey Wardens as well, so maybe it's one of the first Darkspawn as well. Now, I'm going to talk about it very briefly here, but the appearance of this Kunari. I've seen some people online not exactly loving this Kunari for a variety of reasons. The main one being that he looks very, very human. Now, I do agree with that. He does look like a human with horns and pointed ears. And people are lamenting the old kind of monstrous way, or at least other way, that Kunari used to look. But I don't mind that they look very human because for the most part throughout the series they have looked very human. In Dragon Age Origins, we really only had Sten, and he was just a guy with purple eyes, and that's kind of how all the Canary looked. Like if you look at Canary from Dragon Age Origins, they all kind of look a bit the same and generic. Dragon Age Inquisition, they had a bit of a unique look, but I don't think this looks very different from the way your Canary Inquisitor could look. Bull looked very human. Vidasala from the Trespasser DLC looked very human. Other Canary who've appeared in comics and the show Absolution also looked human, but with pointy ears and horns. I think everyone just really misses the Canary from Dragon Age 2, which I miss too. I think that is still the best Canary have ever looked. But I don't think we're going to see that whole, like, just really cool look that the Arashok and his followers had. Now, that being said, this could just be player choice. Whoever customized this version of Rook could have just chose to make them look that way with stuff like skin tone, complexion, scarring, tattoos, and other stuff. We can probably make our Canary look a little less human with horns. But honestly, if they do just look like humans with horns, it's not going to stop me from playing a Canary. I'm pretty sure, like, I'm starting with Elf, but I'm 99% sure Canary will be my second playthrough.
So earlier in Davrin's arc, you were introduced to his nemesis, the Gloomhowler, creature that's been hunting and stalking wardens for quite some time. It's kidnapped a bunch of other griffins. Davrin has been trying to track it down. Now he's got a lead, so we're going to go find this and go track this thing down.
Now, Davrin, he prefers the direct approach. We're going to choose a tough response and see if we can get his approval.
Then let's get rid of it.
Had the same thought. What's left of the wardens are still licking their wounds. So we handle this alone. Just go to the cauldron and get the griffins back. You have to promise to be
he's such a good boy.
Listen to every word I say, stay out of trouble, don't do anything dumb, and don't eat any.
I think we get the point.
Lancet and Remy told me there's a word for the bond between a griffin and warden moving as one. Turlum.
I looked up Lancet, Remy, and the word Turlum. Couldn't find anything on all three.
I find the
So
Griffin
Lancet and Remy must be new characters, and
very
Turlum,
importantly, I know this is a question
as far as I know, the word
everyone's
Turlum
mind.
doesn't
Yes,
exist
you
as a
can
word
pet
in the
a
real
song.
world. But if it
Well,
does, do let me know down in the
goodness for
comments.
that. And all right, what are we going to be doing next?
He's up for this.
All right, we're going to finish getting this information from Davrin on the Gloomhowler, and we'll be off to Hossberg and the Crossroads.
Between Warden and Griffin starts by having faith in each other.
Maybe. I suppose you were born for this sort of fight, boy.
So I guess
All
Darvin's
talent and
personal
temper.
quest is to find the missing
And a sharp
griffins,
tongue to remind you
but
of
his
it.
personal arc is probably going to be
As
building
long
this
as he backs
Turlum
it up.
between him and Hassan.
So I assume that a song can be helpful during the gameplay.
Oh, absolutely. In fact, a lot of Davrin's abilities revolve around calling Asan in the heat of battle. I in particularly love when you're going against enemies. You see Asan swoop down, especially if it triggers a combo.
Shouldn't be
between your
swooping. Swooping's
companions.
bad.
As Corinne mentioned earlier, one of the fun things we've done is if you see the lights on in a room, companions have something to say. You can see Harding up in that space there, Neve behind you as well, and Bellara. But we have a mission ahead of us. We're going to go find the Gloomhowler if we can, and we're going to go through the Crossroads in order to do that. And the Crossroads, if you've played previous Dragon Age games, Trespasser in particular, is a location in the Fade that contains a number of alluvions, allowing you to travel across Thedas in a matter of minutes. But at this point, the Crossroads are under assault by the other elven gods. It's a dangerous place, and we are going to be in for a bit of a fight.
And this alluvion, the Vera Voss, is the central focus point of.
Yeah, before we go on and do anything else, because everyone is probably talking about it, up here on the map, there's a little symbol of Varric. And you can see he's also got an arrow beside him pointing up, so I guess that means he's in this room just above us. So, two theories. Varric is alive, but he just doesn't travel around with us. Maybe after losing Bianca, he doesn't want to do that. Maybe he's injured and he can't travel around with us, so he's staying here. Or, option two, that's a Varric's grave, and that's just flashing up saying, hey, if you go to the grave, there's a unique cutscene at the moment about Varric. So, even though the symbol's there, maybe don't get your hopes up and just assume Varric is still alive just yet.
Of the lighthouse. This is going to take us to Solus's pocket area of the Crossroads, and it might look a little bit different from what you've seen in Trespasser.
So, if you're new to the series or you didn't play Trespasser or read The Masked Empire, the Crossroads is this sort of separate plane. It's between Thedas and the Fade, and it's where all the different alluvions connect to, but they're not like connected in like a single location. Like you hop through an alluvion, and then all the other alluvions are just around you, and you can walk through it. Kind of looked like that in a scene in Dragon Age Inquisition at the end, but that's not what it's exactly like. It is its whole other world that you can kind of just move around and explore. And I really like that we can explore it. Like you can see up here, Crossroads, 0% discovered. I imagine actually by this time in the game, that percentage will just be a bit higher. It's obviously just the build that they're on. There's like, I guess this means chests, and maybe this means unique enemies or unique things to find. Get a bit of a thing here. So a path has emerged from the midst of the Fade that leads to the gathering point where all Alluvians meet, the Crossroads. So brief explanation of the Crossroads, what our current quest is, and what our party is. And you can see we can travel directly to the Crossroads and use that to get to our next location, or we can travel to our tracked quest if we want it, or imagine as close to our tracked quest as possible. Personally, I'll be using the Crossroads because I really like the idea that we can explore it. I kind of was a bit worried when they said, oh, you can go to the Crossroads and explore it. It was just going to be like this little kind of like section of corridors you kind of ran around, and it was just a few different alluvions down each corridor that you went to, and it wasn't really its own place. It was just kind of like an in the middle place instead of having an actual map like in Dragon Age Origins, for example, or Dragon Age Inquisition. But I love that it's its own map and it's its own little micro world for you to explore and find unique parts of.
Can you tell us a little bit about the role that the Crossroads plays in the structure and the gameplay?
Yeah, so the Crossroads is, again, it's the area that you spend a lot of time traveling through as you go from area to area. It's also a space that has, at one point, served as Solus's main base of operations and training ground for his rebellion against the Elven gods. So as you go through it, you're going to find fragments of the past.
So I wondered, did Solus create the and kind of use it in conjunction with the Lighthouse when he was doing the rebellion originally? Or did he have the Crossroads first and then went to the Lighthouse? Was the Lighthouse just where maybe he and like the leaders of his rebellion were, and like most of his army, for lack of a better word, was here in the Crossroads? Don't quite know. We're going to learn a little bit more though in a second. We can see Rook here though say that the lyrium dagger is vibrating like a song in a wine glass. And we really still don't know what the dagger is. We just know it was Solus's, and it's how we trigger runes, and we're going to see actually use it later on in the video as well. I wonder, like, there's something unique in the area, like a hidden object for us to find, and it's vibrating and saying, hey, there's a collectible over in that area. My guess is that's what this, like, bit of dialogue means here, that's saying it's vibrating.
Things that Solus had done previously that are going to give you a bit of insight into Solus as a character, but also into the Elven gods and their motivations.
Some of my favorite content that you'll find if you go exploring in the Crossroads is these opportunities to actually relive some of the memories Solus had during his rebellion. You actually get to take part in this ancient rebellion.
I love that. That is so cool that we're going to see the rebellion that Solus led firsthand. Because there's a lot of important parts in the history of Thedas. There's the Five Blights, there's the Mage Templar War, there's the First Inquisition and the founding of the Chantry, there's Andraste's crusade against the Devinter Imperium, there's the other exalted marches against the Canary led by the Chantry and the Devinter Imperium. But really, I think the big focal point for all of Thedas is Solus's rebellion. Without that rebellion, or if that rebellion failed, Thedas would be wildly different. Like, if Andraste failed her march on the Devinter Imperium, or if she succeeded and survived, the world wouldn't be that much different. There'd just be human nations, and the power scale would probably be a little bit different. But it would still probably be very close to what Thedas is. But Solus' rebellion is what shaped Thedas. Everything about Thedas, like, that is just a focal point in Thedas' history. But anyway, moving on. We can get around the crossroads with this ferryman here, and we've got this caretaker here. He obviously reminds me of Charon or Charon, I'm not sure if I pronounced that right, but that's the ferryman from Greek mythology. We're going to hear a bit more about him from Corinne now in a second, but they do go into that he was here in the crossroads before Solus. So I guess Solus didn't actually create the crossroads, he just found it. Also, we can see these kind of tendrils at the bottom here, and these are very similar to how Pride Demons looked in the first gameplay trailer we saw all the way back in the start of June. I wonder, is this maybe a spirit of faith or wisdom, because a Pride Demon is just a corrupted spirit of faith and wisdom? My guess would be wisdom. Caretaker just seems like a very wise role, especially for a place like the Crossroads.
And here we have the caretaker, a mysterious spirit that was actually here before Solus was and started to help Solus with his rebellion, but also to turn this into a safe haven for spirits. Again, as I mentioned before, the gods are assaulting the crossroads, so it's no longer the safe haven it once was. But you're going to work with this caretaker through quite a large amount of ancillary content to rebuild this into that safe home for these creatures. That if anyone knows Solus, he has a tremendous amount of affection.
I imagine Solus would be very happy to see us do that.
All right, now we're going to get into combat here, and this time
right, so we're seeing a mage.
Now, mage is one of my favorite classes to play. It's primarily a ranged attacker.
Mage looks like it's got the blink dash ability to kind of just dash around real quickly.
I really have to use a variety of strategies to control the battlefield.
And it's using the staff, and I like that the staff is smaller. That was obviously the heavy charge attack from the staff. But I like that it's not like the really long staffs. I'm going to actually pause it. Like in previous Dragon Age games. I like that it's just a small, short, like, compact version. Also, Darkspawn in the Crossroads, which I'm a little surprised by. I'm surprised it's not demons are the enemies in the Crossroads, but I wonder, like, I have two theories go by. They do say that the Evanurus are attacking the Crossroads, so maybe that's why it's Darkspawn, because the Darkspawn served the Evanurus. We're going to hear more about that later on. But also, they could just be a template for this gameplay demo. If you remember, one of the gameplay demos for Dragon Age Inquisition was in Crestwood, and it looked nothing like it did in the endgame. But one of the things it had was that the enemy you were fighting was Red Templars. Red Templars don't appear in Crestwood in the main game. In the main game, it's undead, bandits, and demons. So I wonder, could just be a possibility that these guys are just templates at the moment, and when we actually get to this part in the game, when we finally get our hands on it, they'll be demons or maybe something else.
Spawn are vulnerable to fire, so we made sure to equip our fire staff, have our fire abilities on hand.
You may notice something about the Darkspawn too, that they look a little bit different than they have previously, and part of that is because Gillenane, who has always been focused on using the Blight as essentially a crafting material, a way to alter life itself, has been enhancing and changing these Darkspawn as part of her army.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense of why the Darkspawn don't look like the way they did in previous games. Personally, I don't think they needed to give an in-universe reason. I'm more than happy for them just to go ahead and change it. But it's still nice that there is an in-universe reason, and this does make a lot of sense. Gillenane likes to make messed up creatures. If you read the short story Horror of Hormak, which is from the book To Winter Nights, that has this kind of, I guess, pool of weird grey liquid that when anyone touches it, whether they be human or Darkspawn, they mutate into strange creatures. So you see Darkspawn with like multiple limbs, second heads, wings, tails. There's one that's like literally a small dragon's body, but with a Darkspawn face. A human touches it and they basically turn into a giant centipede monster. Which really means actually that they've been setting up this part of the game for quite a long time. We know that when they were writing To Winter Nights and characters like Emmerich, Neve, and Lucanus, who all appeared in that book, they were put in that book because specifically they knew they were going to be the companions for the next game and they wanted to get them out as soon as possible and get fans familiar with them. So it would actually make a bit of sense. The Horror of Hormak was done specifically to get us ready for a new version of Darkspawn.
Corinne, I noticed that you were doing a combo opportunity. Can you tell us a little bit more about how the role that plays in the actual combat?
Yes, so the combat system in this game, the deep strategy behind it is really to manage the various abilities your companions and Rook have in concert. So in this case, Harding has a combo opportunity with Shred. It's going to apply the Sundered effect and deal a high amount of stagger. Now you'll notice I can combo that with Rook's ability Spirit Bomb. That's going to cause a detonation combo.
So, again, one of the things you'll notice about the terrain here is it's very snowy, very mountainous. The Crossroads is a realm that reflects the waking world. In this case, it's an amalgamation of all the real world spaces that are tied to it. In the case, we've got Hossberg, we've got other mountainous regions. So it's kind of this mix of the swamp.
Yeah, so I'm going to pause here for a second because I want to point something out on this screen. But yeah, the Crossroads, like the Fade, reflects the real world, which has me thinking, is the Lighthouse a reflection of a real place in Thedas? We know that Skyhold, back around the time before the Veil was created, before the Fade was created, or sorry, before the Fade was separated from Thedas, Skyhold belonged to Solus, and Skyhold is where Solus created the Veil. I wonder, is the Lighthouse a part of Skyhold? When Solus created the Veil and split Thedas and the Fade apart, was the Lighthouse at Skyhold and then got pulled out? A lot of people theorize that the Black City in the Fade is just part of Arlathan, that when the Veil got created, got pulled into the Fade. So I wonder if the Lighthouse is the same. It's the parts of Skyhold that just got taken away. Now, we can also see here in the top right what looks like dwarven statues. So I guess this alluvian here leads to that area we saw from the release date trailer, which looked like a dwarven settlement on the surface and a mine.
And as you'll see as we move towards these alluvians, the architecture around them very clearly reflects what's on the other side. We're not going to spoiler and tell you exactly what's on the other side.
Yeah, so
but
that part
you
there,
can
like
maybe
those
make a
things
few
sticking out of the
guesses
ground,
based on
we've
what
seen
you're
them in
seeing.
shots around
Do
Weishaupt.
I
So I
have to
guess
do
maybe
the
that one leads to
Crossroads, or
Weishaupt.
can I just fast travel right through?
So it depends how you progress through the game. The first time you go to any of the new regions in the world, you'll traverse the Crossroads to get there. Subsequent times, we of course support fast travel, but it behooves you to actually go back and explore the Crossroads, as some of the deepest secrets lie within.
So now you're
Crossroads
in
all the
Hossberg
time.
Wetlands. It's an area that has been almost completely consumed by the blight. The Grey Wardens have set up.
Okay, few things here. Get these really quickly out of the way so we don't miss them. This is the Hossberg Wetlands. Hossberg is the capital of the Anderfels, and it is on a river, so that makes sense. It would be called the Wetlands. It's not too far from Weishaupt as far as like the general map goes, but they're not right beside each other. So I wonder, can we like run from here to Weishaupt, or are they on separate maps? Also, I hope Hossberg is explorable as well. Like, we know Minrathos is going to be explorable to a certain extent, but I hope there's more urban environments like Antiva City or Hossberg or other places to go to. Now, we have this thing here called a beacon, and discover these beacons throughout Thedas to unlock fast travel, party member swapping, and respawning at this location. I guess the best way to describe this is like the horns that were dotted around Kirkwall in Dragon Age 2. And if you die, I guess you come back here as well.
An outpost here. Again, if you know anything about the Grey Wardens, they fight the blight anywhere they see it, and they're noticing something strange is going on here. The blight is not behaving as they
So the
expect
blight's
it to,
changed, it's
as it
growing. Gillenon
historically
is
has. So
doing
they've
something
set
to
up
it.
shop in this place called Lavendel, and you are here to work with them, help them out, and help them find an answer to the questions about the blight that they're asking.
Tell me a little bit more about this area. It looks a little bit like a hub where you can get a lot of quests and things like that.
So that
That's
little girl
right.
there,
So
Mila or
here we
Mila,
find one
she
of the
is the
bases
little
of the
girl
Grey
from the
Wardens.
release date trailer
So
where
you'll
you
see
saw
they've
Rook
really built up
and
a small
Darvin
fighting force
having to
here
protect
hold
her
off the
from
dark
a bunch
spawn.
of ghouls.
What's more, the
So
Grey
she's
Wardens
obviously
are
an
a
important
faction we're
character
going to
in
be
some
working
way.
with throughout the game. We've got Holden, one of the Grey Warden quartermasters. We're actually going to upgrade his shop and see what items he has in store for us, see if maybe it gives us an edge in combat.
So we can upgrade the shops in the game, which is interesting. Gives us better gear, maybe better value for selling, maybe make some things cheaper. We can also see here power 1,600 out of 3,029. Clicking in the left stick does something. And this is the Grey Warden's power. So from the Discord Q&A, Corrine and John said that throughout the game you will be improving and upgrading the different factions you meet throughout the game. So that's the Grey Wardens, the Shadow Dragons, the Antivan Crows, the Veil Jumpers, the Morn Watch, and the Lords of Fortune. And I wonder how important this is for the rest of the game. Is strengthening the Grey Wardens just going to give us better gear and better weapons for them? Or is it going to have specific story beats? If they get stronger, will we get new quests? If they get stronger, will it affect the game's ending, for example? Is it a bit maybe like Mass Effect 3, where we have to gather allies and then it'll be a big battle at the end? And how strong our different allies are will make that battle easier or will affect the kind of reinforcements we can call in? Can we make all of our groups like really, really strong? Or is it going to be a bit more balanced? Like if I make the Grey Wardens really strong, we'll be like, cool, the Wardens are the strongest they've been in centuries. But then because at the Antivan Crows or the Shadow Dragons are much weaker, really want to know more about how this system's going to work, like how integral it is to the main story. But at the same time, like we've gotten a lot of spoilers already, and I hope they keep it a bit more vague.
And the Grey Wardens, much like
Now, I'll just go back a little bit. So as you can see, there's plenty of gear here to get. Some of it has been locked off. Probably have to level up the shop first. And some of it is marked specifically just for Darvin. Better shields and swords for him, and upgraded versions of his existing shields and swords. So I wonder, can we only upgrade Darvin at Grey Warden shops? Well, will it be the same for the others? Like Lucanus can only be upgraded at Antivan Crow places, or Neve can only be upgraded at places that are associated with the Shadow Dragons? Or is it just, yeah, this is a Grey Warden shop, so it'll only have Darvin stuff, but if you go to this other just generic merchant in Minrathos or somewhere else, you can still get Darvin stuff, but then you can get also some stuff for Lucanus and some stuff for Emmerich and some stuff for yourself. If I was going to guess, I'd say that second one makes the most sense. Now we can see up here, drawn weapons, that's obviously armor. Jewelry, like your rings, your necklace, your belt, your accessories is probably the actual proper word to use. No clue what this is. We know there's not other potions, as far as I'm aware. Oh, crafting materials. That makes sense. Yeah, crafting materials. No clue about what that could mean. Like, I would assume that symbol means junk to sell off, like stuff you don't want, but then why would it be in the buy section, or unless you go over here and it says sell? And this is obviously clothing items for ourselves, maybe for our companions. We know, and we've seen that our companions have some casual looks when they're around the lighthouse. And I believe they said in the most recent Discord Q&A that there's like alternate versions for them. I hope there is, so you can have them all look a little bit different while they're just chilling back at base.
like the other factions,
Okay, so yeah, we're upgrading Darvin's sword from Griffin's Talon +6 to Epic Longsword to Griffin's Talon's +6 Legendary Longsword. So yeah, damage goes up. Not really much to look at. Necrotic damage, fire damage. Yeah, it's all pretty standard stuff. So you can see there it says at the bottom of the sword on the left, equipped. So I imagine there are other swords we can find out in the world to equip to Darvin. Alright, let's just jump back there for a second. So this is the orb and the dagger, and we're going to see the orb a little bit later on in the gameplay. But the orb and dagger are the alternate weapon for mages in Dragon Age the Veilguard. Past games, mages only got the staff. Now they've got the staff and their alternate, the orb and dagger. But like it seems the same, just like as any other weapon in its general design. It's got a damage, it's got a stagger, it's got some various effects, and it's got a bit of flavor at the bottom. Obviously, it's not a massive game changer for mage players, but it is a nice improvement for quality of life. It does just provide a new alternative for mages that we haven't seen before.
They have other priorities, so getting them more powerful allows them to more meaningfully contribute to your fight against the Elven Gods.
Yeah, so they said they contribute to the fight against the Elven Gods. I just wonder, is that in a story aspect or a gameplay aspect?
Fortress into the small town of Lavendel. Now, this used to be a beautiful place full of life, flowers, and you can see what effect the blight has had. But the residents are still here. They're trying to make the most of their lives, and you can see there's plenty of opportunities to help them. In fact, we're going to quickly check in with Finn the physician and see what he has in store for us.
So Flynn, again, one of the focuses of this game is characters, not causes.
I've been busy with patients, but I'm short on medical supplies. My mentor, Oscar, he should have some. He has a cabin outside the village. If you're out there, tell him you saw Flynn, and they could use his help.
And Flynn is a warden who you will do quests with. We wanted to make sure that the side content of Dragon Age the Veilguard felt as meaningful and tied to the overall conflict of the game as anything else you do. We don't want you to just go off and do random tasks. Everything needs to feel meaningful, either contributing to your fight against the gods or contributing to the growth of your companions and the factions that you need at your side to stop the gods.
You look a bit worried.
We're not sure where some of our wardens are, Beckett and a few others. We're supposed to check in. We need to look out for each other more than ever. It's just, I know they took Weishaupt hard, and I hope they're okay.
Right, just jump back. So, wanted to go through all of that because there was quite a bit to absorb there. So yeah, as John said there, we're going to be building up the various factions so they can help us fight against the Evanurus. Makes a lot of sense for how the game's going to work. It seems to be like kind of like a step forward or an upgrade of how the story for Dragon Age Inquisition went. Inquisition was, gathering your different allies. The mages are Templars, the leader of Orlais, the wardens are no wardens. But they were just kind of like secondary goals to the main goals that the Inquisition was doing. But gathering allies wasn't a main goal in Dragon Age Inquisition. However, gathering allies seems to be a big part for Dragon Age the Veilguard, which makes a lot of sense. So yeah, I think there is going to be a gameplay and heavy story-based aspect of how strong we make our different factions. But they said there when they were talking to that guy Flynn, the physician, that it was all about helping characters. So I wonder, as the game progresses and the strength of the Grey Wardens improves, like will we keep going back to Flynn to get more quests from him? Because I think everyone kind of agrees the side quests in Dragon Age Inquisition weren't amazing. They weren't terrible by any means, and there were some really good and fun side quests in there. But for a lot of part, it was just kind of go here, talk to this person, finish the quest, or do what they want, go back, get your reward from them, and that was it. You never spoke to that person again. And I think that kind of lost a bit of substance there. So I wonder if with Flynn, like maybe we have multiple quests for him, as they kind of said, like focusing on the character. So here he's like, hey, can you go find my old master for me and get his help? And you're like, great, cool, I can do that. And next point you go back to him, he's like, hey, I need these rare herbs, but they're in an area that's guarded by a dangerous creature and we don't have wardens spare to go get him. Can you go get him? And you're like, sure, I'll do that. And then they keep going on and on like that. You got more quests from Flynn. Because then you would actually care about that. You would care about Flynn and other quest givers if you went back to them on a regular basis and saw them more and more. I also guess by this point that Weishaupt Fortress, which we saw in the high level gameplay, that whole quest where Gillenon attacks Weishaupt with her Archdemon and her Darkspawn, that has already happened. We know they're going to say as well that this is quite late in the game, or at least like it's a good bit into the game. This is a high level area. So the attack on Weishaupt is maybe early, kind of like maybe an end of Act 1 kind of deal. And it seems following that the Wardens are on their last legs. They've kind of been beaten back. They're just standing. And it's going to be about us building them back up and getting them to this much more stronger position. But I do have a few queries about what's going on with the Wardens. First of all, what are your Legion Wardens doing? Because if you decide to ally with your Legion Wardens in Dragon Age Inquisition, rather than sending them away, and they survive the events of Dragon Age Inquisition, because the Wardens can all die in Dragon Age Inquisition, it's actually possible through War Table missions to really mess up and just lose all your Wardens. But they essentially split into a second faction of Wardens in the south that aren't allied with the Wardens of Weishaupt. So I wonder, is that going to still play a part in the game? Or is it just going to be ignored? Probably that second one, to be honest. We also know from Winter Nights, one of the short stories there, that a lot of Grey Wardens are being called back to Weishaupt. One of these short stories follows two Grey Wardens as they're making their way to Weishaupt, and they kind of go into this village to help them deal with a werewolf problem. So there's obviously something going on with the Wardens before the Evanurus get released and before the events of Veilguard kick off. And maybe they're being called back for something else. Maybe there's a bit of worry about the Blight. Maybe this is the archdemons are getting out before the Evanurus get out. Maybe the Evanurus are kind of seeing their escape approaching through Solus and what he's doing, and they're like, "Cool, we'll get things started. We'll wake up our archdemons and we'll start this new Blight before we get out, so everything's got a bit of a head start for us." Maybe it's related to the Griffins and this Gloomhowler thing. Who knows? But like, judging by the end of Inquisition and to Winter Nights, there's already a lot going on with the Grey Wardens before we even get around to the Evanurus being freed. And before we do anything else as well, I love this new design for the Grey Warden armor. Wasn't a fan of the Dragon Age 2 and Dragon Age Inquisition looks. They weren't terrible. I just thought they were a bit meh. But I really like this armor. Grey Warden is definitely going to be my second playthrough, so I'm looking forward to getting some nice, fancy Grey Warden armor.
Just, I know they took Weishaupt hard, and I hope they're okay.
All right, so we picked up a couple of quests in Lavendel.
And yeah, well, they're walking around Lavendel. Looked like there were a lot of side quests to pick up as well, so there's a lot of content to do.
This Warden Fortress of the Cauldron.
seeing a lot of kind of organic matter. I suppose that's the blight.
Absolutely. So the blight at this point, as mentioned before, the
Blight has always
Wardens
been very
understand
organic
it's changed.
throughout
It's
all
become a
games.
lot
Like we
more
could see the
organic, a lot
blight
more
growing
alive.
around the
You've back
ground in Dragon Age
2,
Origins when you're in the
Inquisition,
Deep Roads.
Origins. The blight,
But I
while
think it
it
does look a bit
was
more
a
organic.
slow-moving wall, it didn't have this almost sentience, this almost
You can see in
thought
Origins
behind
Darkspawn
it. And obviously,
fortifications,
we've talked about how the gods that are
and
out
like
are
the Darkspawn
blighted.
obviously were wearing armor
That
and
probably
carrying
has something to
weapons.
do with it, and it's
So
made
it seems the
this area
Darkspawn are
far more dangerous than it would have been
mutating,
before.
growing, evolving, however you
And
want
we
to phrase
might
it.
notice as we get into combat with some of these darkspawn that they do look a little bit different than before, and that's very intentional. Gillenane, the god
Yeah,
of
like the ogre looks
monsters,
completely different,
she
but I am
uses
here for it.
blight
I
like a
really like the
medium to
redesign
sculpt
so
and
much.
warp the darkspawn to do her bidding, to suit her purposes.
So right now you'll see a couple of Hurlocks, one with some pretty disgusting growths on its back. Again, the idea that the Darkspawn and the Blight is an organic weapon. They're not just coming out and, making swords, making armor. They're using the Blight to augment themselves so they can more effectively defeat you and also give the gods the world that they desire.
All right, now I'm actually going to switch to my Orb and Dagger on the Mage, and those of you that were fans of the Knight Enchanter in Dragon Age Inquisition, you might feel right
Which
at
was
home
me.
with
I
this.
love the Knight Enchanter.
This is a more melee-focused, more agile version of the Mage. One of the main mechanics here is you can use this elemental orb to apply
Yeah, I love that the orb
stacks
just
of
floats around
elemental
beside us
damage to
and
the enemy,
has
and then
like its own
unleash
thing, and
them
that's where
with
the
your
spells
dagger
seem to be coming
detonate
from.
them.
I wonder if like it's green here, but if we have a fire one, I
So,
hope like it means the
again,
color
we're
changes on it. I imagine so.
You'll notice that there are blight pools. The darkspawn aren't just coming out of nowhere. The blight is spawning them. Again,
Not like in Dragon
part
Age
of
2 when they all just
Gillenane's
fell from the
attempt
sky.
to turn this into an army for the gods is to use these darkspawn, not just, again, whereas you have the Venatori and the Antam, one case representing magical
I
power,
wonder
the
when
other
it comes
case
for the
representing physical strength.
orb and
The
dagger,
darkspawn are
are they
representing
like a separate
overwhelming
thing?
force.
Like I can get
That
my
was a
own
pretty
dagger and my
clutch
own
heal
orb,
a little
or if
earlier,
I
by
buy
the
an
way.
orb, do I just get a dagger that
We've talked
matches
at
it?
length before that our fans have asked us, where is the healing magic? Can you bring it back? And Neve in this game, happy to oblige with a kit of healing spells.
And I assume that means all the
So
mages can
one of
get
the
healing
interesting
spells. They're
things
just
that I
probably
love
referring to
about our
Neve in this
companions
build.
is each of them, their abilities, the way that they're built, they're very thematically appropriate to the character. They're very focused on making sure that the gameplay and the narrative are as closely aligned as possible.
I'm just
In
going
the
to jump
case
back for a
of
second because I
Neve
realized,
versus
looking at my
Blar
notes, I
versus,
actually
Hammercar
missed
mages,
something there.
each of them use these darkspawn, not just, again, whereas you have the Venatori and the Antam,
That's the part I wanted to jump back to. So we've got the Darkspawn here as one sort of enemy. We've got the Venatori as another faction, but you heard John just mention the group, the Antam. If you're unaware, the Antam are the military branch, the army of the Canary people. Obviously, there's a lot going on with the Canary. If you play Trespasser, read the Winter Nights, or read the Missing, or read the Rates of the Winter series as well, the Canary, or at least their army, because they're not supported by the rest of their society and civilization, the Antam are invading Tevinter, and it looks like they're moving into Ravane and Antiva as well. So they are going to be playing a part in the game. Two things. One, another spoiler, but I think, like a lot of people, we expected to see the Antam in Veilguard as a faction and as possibly an antagonist. But two, I'm so happy that they're going to have this in. I've really been loving and fascinated with the whole like plot line of the Antam coming south and invading Tevinter and Ravane and Antiva and seeing how that's going to go. I'm really, really happy to see that it's being resolved here in Veilguard because, as I said, we saw a little bit of it in Rates of the Winter and the Winter Nights. That takes place like a decade before Veilguard, so I was like, oh, there's a good chance they could just say, yeah, that all got dealt with in that decade, which you don't have to see. But seems that it's still going on 10 years later, the invasion, and we're going to see it here in Veilguard, and I'm really happy. So
one case representing magical power and the other case representing physical strength. The Darkspawn are representing
hey, that's really cool that the different factions are going to like
That
be
was
a
a
different
pretty
way.
clutch
So
heal a
Darkspawn
little
are going to
earlier,
maybe
by
focus
the
on
way.
numbers.
You know, we've talked
Venatori
at
will
length
have more
before
mages,
that, our
and
fans have asked
Antam will
us,
have more
where is the healing
melee-based
magic? Can you
fighters,
bring
like
it
just
back?
more warriors
And
rather than actually
Neve in
mages.
this game,
And
happy
maybe
to
the
oblige
Antam,
with a kit of
like their
healing
enemies will be
spells.
stronger, but they won't be able to
So
like
one of the interesting
overwhelm
things
you
that I
with
love
numbers,
about our
where the
companions
Darkspawn
is
are going
each
to
of
overwhelm
them,
you with just like
their
massive amounts of
abilities, the way that
ghouls and
they're
weaker
built,
Darkspawn.
they're very thematically appropriate to the character. They're very focused on making sure that the gameplay and the narrative are as closely aligned as possible. In the case of Neve versus Vlar versus Amrik, our mages, each of them has
Every
a
game
healing
needs
ability
zipline
that
now.
is thematically appropriate to them.
Like
Makes
zip lines and
sense
grappling
when you know
hooks.
them as a
If your
character.
game doesn't have it, why even
Watching it-
bother? Now, you can see Rook there picked up some crafting materials. We've got Imperial Weave, that's just a cloth. But we do have something called Heartwood there. It has appeared in a game before. It was in Dragon Age Awakening. It was a unique quest item that you got from a Sylvan, which is basically like an Ent called the Old One, and you use it to make either a fancy bow or a fancy shield, depending on your choice. It could just be the shared name, it could just be like, that was like an interesting throwback, let's use it, but I thought it's worth mentioning.
You play, I'm struck by sort of the size and the scope of this particular area. It seems like there's a lot of exploration that I can be doing right here.
You can see here, it's just a bit of
That
pop
was
up,
really one of our
Foot
goals with
soldiers
these
armaments,
areas. Of
common
course, we are a
appearance. So we know that from the Discord Q&A, they said, yes, there's transmog, so you can have the stats of one set of armor, but have it look like a completely different set of armor. But there are going to be some appearances you can pick up that are not sets of armor in game. You can't like find that armor out there, but it is an appearance in the transmog, which I think is kind of cool. Like it's a bit weird that they don't have an armor set, but I guess like if they really want to lean into the transmog more than just like different armor sets, it makes a lot of sense. Personally, I don't mind too much. I don't really use transmog that often, but if there are unique sets, especially like with the pre-order stuff is all unique sets, it would make a lot of sense to use it, and I probably will.
mission-based game, but we really emphasize player autonomy. You can revisit these spaces.
Right. Fast travel unlocked. That's like the square and this top part are actually two completely different things. They just activate at the same time. So using companion abilities with Delirium Dagger. Companions can be called upon for help via Delirium Dagger, even when they're not present in your party. So, Discord Q&A again. They said that each companion is going to have an exploration-based ability to help you get through different things. So instead of all the rogues having lockpicking, maybe only one of the rogues have lockpicking, and they have kind of hinted at this through the Discord Q&A. So maybe Harding is your lockpicking person, or Lucanus is, or maybe Emmerich can repair like broken bridges so you can get across, or Tash can knock down weakened structures for you to get through. And Delirium Dagger means if you come across one of these areas that you need your companions to help you get through, you don't need to be like, oh, I need Neve, but I don't have Neve with me, so I gotta go back and find a beacon, swap around my party, then come back and use Neve to get me through this area. You can just use Delirium Dagger. Don't know if it's something you can use from the very beginning, like you have to improve your like approval ratings with your companions. Do you have to upgrade the dagger? Is it a skill that you need to unlock through leveling up? Like I don't mind this as a thing. I think it's fine, especially means we don't have to do a lot of backtracking. But I hope it's just not a free thing that you get at the start. I hope you actually have to earn it, but not like really earn it. Like I think it just being tied to approval would be fine. But if it's not, I'm okay with it.
They're full of secrets, puzzles, some pretty incredible bosses and treasure. And of course, as we saw earlier in Lavendel, some really narratively rich side quests.
One thing that's interesting is you'll find we're going on a quest
And
for
that's
Darvin,
Darvin's
but
one. He
Darvin
just
is
swoop
not
in and let you
currently in our
through.
party. That's because Darvin has gone ahead of us and is waiting for us at the cauldron. This is again, we want the
I
followers.
think that's really interesting as well that we can start these personal quests and not have our companions with us.
While they won't complete
Like I think
the quest
Morgan
on
is
their
the
own,
only one
they
that you can do
will
that in
go
any of the
ahead and
Dragon
get
Age
things ready.
games.
So when you get there, you can have you talk to them, you have a conversation with them, and it feels like they're
And like, is there a benefit to not bringing them with us, or is like a disadvantage?
As you are.
This looks like a pretty contiguous zone, is that right?
It is, yes. So it's full of branching paths, different areas to explore. And what I love is the more content you do in the area, the more shortcuts you're going to discover. You're really going to have a lot more flexibility in how you navigate between your remaining missions and quests.
That's really great to hear that the maps are more like just branching paths with like wide open areas in between them. I didn't mind the hinterlands and all the other maps in Inquisition, but it was a bit like too open worldy at times, where you just kind of walk to A to B and just like kind of jump up like the sides of small mountains to get across, kind of thing. It seems that they're going back to maybe how it was in Dragon Age Origins, like with the deep roads into Brazilian forest, where it's just multiple paths that are winding around each other. Like you're at this part of the map and you need to get to that part. There's like 2 or 3 different ways you can go, and which way you go is up to you. As Corinne said, you can unlock some shortcuts and other passages to help you get around a bit differently.
Well, I think something really interesting too about the way that our team has built these spaces is,
Although I imagine in
each space has
some
its own
main
story to
quests or
tell,
even some
and
side quests, they become a
while
bit
those
more linear,
quests,
like the
we
way we
talked
saw
earlier about those
Weishaupt
quests
in
and
the
side
high
quests
level
being
gameplay.
narratively relevant, they also contribute to a more of a meta narrative, meta story about the space itself. So
Okay, 2 things I'm going to go through. I love that John's saying here that like each map and each zone has its own story to tell, and you're going to figure out that story as you play the game. Because it was kind of there in Inquisition, but not a lot. Like you got some of the like hinterlands that it was fighting between the mages and Templars, and all the local Fereldans were displaced. Empress de Leon, there was a little village being attacked by the demons sent by Imshale. But like you get there, you go through it once, and that's kind of it. You can go through multiple times, obviously, and you probably do have to do all the quests there. But once you go through it once, you kind of know what's going on, you know what the story is, and that's it. So it's really cool to hear that as we progress through the game, we're going to learn more and more about these different areas, and the areas will have their own stories to tell alongside the quests.
So contribute to a more of a meta narrative, meta story about the space itself.
Like, what is this beam? And that's what I'm really curious about. I don't think it's an ability because it doesn't look like any of the abilities are available for use at this moment. The one on the bottom is on cooldown, and the other 2 are grayed out because I'm assuming this blue bar here is our mana, and obviously it's not high enough to use the abilities. They use it with both the staff and the orb, so I don't think it's a charged attack. I'll just say charge beam. Maybe it's a rune ability, but like Rook doesn't have the dagger out, and we saw from the high level gameplay when they use the rune, they did take the dagger out. And we saw a few seconds ago when they summoned Asan to get through that area, they did take the dagger out as well. So maybe it is just a charge attack, and it doesn't matter if you have the orb or staff equipped. It's a cool shot as well. I do really like the look of it.
So in the case of Hossberg, we talked about how this is an area surrounded by blight, and you're kind of getting to the center of what exactly is going on in Hossberg and Lavendel, and these quests that you do and the content Corinne is currently engaged in helps to tell that story.
I believe as well, earlier on, I just missed it. Corinne was saying that she built this build around like self-healing by using necrotic abilities.
Darkspawn on their own.
So I guess it's just some sort of necrotic beam that does allow her to not only deal damage, but also get a bit of healing as well. Which is really cool that healing is not just spells, like specific healing spells or potions. Like there's other little abilities and ways you can do that.
Making use of the environment to your advantage.
And I just saw that you could do a takedown move, so it's kind of a finishing move.
You can. Now, in this particular build, I'm really focused on using necromantic energies to siphon life force.
Okay, I just got a bit ahead of myself there when I was talking about it. I watched this video so many times, I can't remember the order they're going through everything anymore.
It's a really powerful, heavy-hitting style of gameplay.
All right, so you'll notice Darvin is waiting for us, so let's see what he has to say. The sun flies in.
Yeah, a bad day at the cauldron.
What could do that?
What have they been hiding inside?
So something tore through the gate. That's probably not great. Looks like we should probably get moving.
We won't find out standing around here.
Be ready for anything.
Right, so because we didn't bring Darvin with us, they've got Neve and Harding as the companions. Darvin is running around as sort of a non-companion NPC. He's running around, probably going to help us in fights, but we can't order and tell him to do stuff. Like, I don't know, is that better? Is it worse? I don't mean like in a design way, like in a story way, is it going to be better or worse? Like a positive would be you basically have an extra companion to help you in fights against enemies, which is good, but it could be worse in a way that like, will it be from a story perspective? Like, will we get separated from Darvin at some point because he's not in our main party? And then could that lead to a bad ending or just a different ending? Can our quests, especially the personal quests, end differently because we don't have the companion directly in our party? Be interesting to find out.
So because we don't have Darvin in our party, he's going to move ahead and wait for us while we bring Neve and Harding along to clear a path for ourselves to find Darvin and get to where he is.
Can you talk a little bit about
So he's not
how
with us the
Neve and
whole time,
Harding,
he's just with us
sort of
some of the time.
synergize during the combat?
Yeah, so Neve and Harding, Neve is a mage, Harding is a rogue, and each of the classes, and you can build and party entirely of one class if you want, but the idea is that the classes synergize and they can set up and detonate each other's abilities in a very interesting way. Now, because you have a lot of freedom in how you build your character, you can, again, as said, you can have all rogue party, all mage party, all warrior party, and it still works. But in this case, Neve and Harding are very effective at setting up and detonating, in this case, as Corinne's going to show.
So we're in danger here, and this is really what I love about the tactical layer of combat. If you get in that clutch situation where you've got this devastating incoming attack, great time to pause gameplay, weigh your options, and in this case, I'm going to go back to our combo here.
I want to look at both of these abilities. So yeah, Harding's is pretty straightforward. It shreds, deals damage, deals high stagger. But what about this one? Spirit Bomb. Applies siphon and deals damage each second you are connected to a target. So it connects you directly to the target. That's not the beam weapon then, is it? I don't think so. Before a final blast deals bonus damage that intensifies the longer the target is exposed to it. Oh, maybe it was the beam.
And see if I can just quickly get out of the way.
Okay, that was a bit of a hard angle to tell. But
Right.
is Spirit Bomb just the beam? Maybe
You
we'll
can
see again
I've
in a
applied
second.
Siphoning to these enemies, so I'm actually going to be leeching their health when I use my mage beam.
I mean, no, because they did that, and the cooldown didn't trigger for the
Now you'll
Spirit
notice
Bomb
there's
ability.
blight boils throughout the area, and that's part of our philosophy on the combat encounters. If I don't destroy these blight boils, ghouls are going to continue to emerge. So I'm really focused on what targets do I take down first. This enemy is a little bit weaker. I think I'm going to have my...
I think that's a really good design that more and more enemies are going to appear at these boils or other similar areas unless you take them out. I know people will probably say, oh, that's maybe not a good design. It's a bit of a cheap design because it's just like hordes and hordes of enemies. But it's not really hordes and hordes of enemies. It's only hordes of enemies if you allow it to be. So it does get you to think a bit tactically. Like, you focus on the big, strong Hurlocks here and take them out, but then risk being overwhelmed by ghouls? Or do you go straight after the boils, but then you're not looking at the Hurlocks who are dealing damage to you and your companions? It does require you to think tactically, and you're seeing that actually here now in a second. Corinne is going to order Neve and Harding to deal with the Hurlocks while she goes off and deals with the boils. But I wonder as well, can you leave the boils up and just like farm XP and resources and just like keep the fight going?
Companions focus on them while I deal with this grenadier that's given me some problem.
Okay, she's not directly dealing with the boils.
Yeah,
she's dealing with the
I will say,
grenadier.
and no, I'm not on the stick. Corinne is much better at this game than I am, and
You say that?
Well, most of the time, yes, 100%.
Pretty sure that was definitely timed.
But each enemy, again, really leaning into the organic. What I love about the grenadiers is they basically rip off pieces of themselves and throw them at you, which explode as blight. And again, really leaning to the idea that the blight is organic and disgusting.
One thing that I'm noticing is that the combat encounters can get pretty intense. You end up fighting a lot of different enemies. You can absolutely die if you're not careful.
Yes, and this, as we mentioned earlier, this is well into the game. So combat counters have really ramped up. And it really shows the importance of positioning, using your companions wisely, and looking for those synergies and combos. Now, this is in.
So yeah, I think this defeat here is staged because they obviously just wanted to show off what it's like when Rook actually goes down. Makes a lot of sense for the demo to actually show how this system works. So obviously you can load the last save, go to the main menu, or you can use this to revive, and you can see you've got 1 out of 1. So I imagine that's a resource we're probably going to be buying from shops, getting as rewards for finishing quests or finding in chests, and we can probably upgrade the amount we're holding through levels or gear and equipment. I know some people aren't happy with this style. They prefer if they went down and then you just, had Neve or Harding or one of your other companions come up and revive you, or the fight just continued without you, similar or pretty much exactly how it went with other Dragon Age games. I do get that, and I do kind of prefer it that way, but then again, like, I haven't got my hands on Veilguard. I don't know which way is better. This is obviously the Mass Effect way of doing things, because in Mass Effect, if Shepard or Ryder went down, like, that was it. That was game over. Start again. You couldn't survive going down. So it seems they're kind of trying to combine both of them. I also saw some people saying they didn't like that it's in the defeat screen. I mean, it's not really different from how the most recent God of War games worked when you went down. Kratos goes down and then Atreus or like whichever companion you have going around with you, if you have a certain item, you get a couple of seconds where you can press the button and your companion comes up and like presses a resurrection stone to you and Kratos hops back up. Basically the same thing. The only difference is in this version, you're seeing the defeat screen, and by the looks of it, you have time to decide which choice you want to go with. You don't have to decide, because in God of War, you had to decide straight away because if a few seconds passed, it was just like, okay, game over. You weren't quick enough to bring yourself back from the dead. But here, it looks like you at least get a few seconds. Personally, as I said, I did like the whole go down and keep fighting with the rest of your companions kind of thing. But I don't mind this. It's obviously they're moving in a Mass Effect style way because the Mass Effect style, maybe they just feel like it works a bit better. But in the end, it's a change, but I don't think it's a bad change. And I think if you're complaining about something this small, you probably weren't going to like the game to begin with, or you're just looking for stuff to complain about because it's such a small, insignificant thing to complain about. But that's just my opinion anyway.
Interesting. We just went down. We've built our companions to be able to come to our aid. So we're actually going to use a revive here. And Neve to the rescue.
And as Corinne mentioned, this is later in the game, and Hossberg itself is what I would consider a later game area, and the encounter is a little bit more challenging. It's a more dangerous space. This shows up in the encounter, but it also shows up in the visuals, the storytelling here. This is a place that you don't want to be. You don't want to be in Hossberg. It is full of darkspawn.
Yeah, I definitely don't want to be in Hossberg. Look at this place.
Generally not a pleasant place to be.
Well, we'll be able to explore more of the Cauldron when Dragon Age the Veilguard comes out on October 31st. In the meantime, we are going to be continuing on with our IGN First coverage of Dragon Age for the rest of September and for everything that's great about games and our
Okay, and this is the end here. Now I'm just going to jump back a second because I'm trying to get a look at that mark on the top. Is that Gillenon? A little bit, but it's very, very hard to tell from this distance. But that could be Gillenon up there, which could show a connection between the Cauldron and the Evanurus. And maybe my theory about the first Darkspawn being trapped down here isn't that far off, or at least that the Gloom Howler is connected to Gillenon and the Evanurus some way. But like, it's very hard to tell from this distance if that is Gillenon or not. But that is the end of this 22 minutes. We know that we're getting more coming out soon. We should get a look at progression, I believe, this week as well. There was a look, obviously, last week, the Discord Q&A and the companions. I'm going to have a video about the companions and maybe the Discord Q&A coming up. I did actually make a video, or at least I've started making a video about the Discord Q&A, and it's gone on so long I don't know if I'm going to actually finish it or not, or just move on to something else. We know from Twitter as well that we are going to see the character creator this month, which for me, it's the part I'm most excited for. I cannot wait to get my hands on the character creator. I hope it's released early so we can all make our Rooks before Veilguard releases. But if not, I'm at least happy to get a proper look at it soon. Hopefully it's a detailed and in-depth look and not just a quick go over. But going back to this video, like, I liked what we've seen here. The gameplay looks fun. Mages look very fun. The combat stuff for the mages looks great as well. It's fluid. It's fast. Like I said in the past, I wasn't mad on the mages from Dragon Age Inquisition or Dragon Age 2, which was just, stand there and swing your staff around. I like that it's got a bit of movement, a bit of fluidity to it. It looks just visually better. The game looks better. I'm glad we saw at least some sort of an urban area that we can visit, that little village. We can see there's a lot of side quests to do to keep us busy. We kind of know how the shops are going to work and how the upgrading of factions and the empowering of them is going to work as well. We've got some vague ideas, which is nice. Love the Lighthouse, obviously. Out of all the bases we've had, the camp or Hawk's Manor in Dragon Age 2, or Skyhold, or the Normandy, or the Tempest, I think just judging by the look there, the Lighthouse might be my favourite. If I had to pick a place out of all the home bases to live in a Bioware game, I think the Lighthouse would be my choice because it just looks so cool and so pretty. I think my only negative, I have to say, and it's not about Dragon Age the Veilguard, it's about this video, and it's just the marketing. I think if I don't say it, it'll be stuck in my head. I just wonder, are they showing us too much? I saw Carla Elizabeth and Gilder Tholin on Twitter saying that they were surprised about how spoilery this video was. And Dave, like, it is very spoilery, and they've seen some other stuff from the game. They were on the community council, they've seen more of the game than we have now. By their own words, they haven't seen a lot, they've only just seen more. My hope is that by spoilers, what we've seen is just scratching the surface, and that there's just a lot more that we haven't seen. I think you've all probably seen the picture of, the iceberg where it's like you know, on top, this is what the TV show was, and then underneath is like, this is what the books were, or like, this is the lore that's important, and then underneath is, this is all the lore. I hope it's like that, which is like, this is the spoilers that we've seen, but underneath this is everything we haven't seen, and there's so much more. And I do think there is. I do think, regardless of what we've seen so far, that there's a lot more that we haven't seen that is going to shock us and blow us away and make some of us cry, probably, because that usually happens in these games. My other thing to bring up is just with all the news they've got going on all the time, like every week we're getting something new. I just hope burnout doesn't happen for content creators who are reacting to this stuff. I hope burnout doesn't happen for fans and they're kind of getting maybe not put off by Dragon Age of Veilguard, but like, I'm feeling maybe you could show too much and then the hype would fade away, if that makes sense. I don't think so. I'd be very surprised if the hype did fade away, especially with the hardcore Bioware and Dragon Age fans. We've been waiting for this game for so damn long. We're going to buy it regardless, and we're going to be excited regardless. Or for the new fans, where this will be the first Dragon Age game they're going to play, or they've only very recently got into the series. Like, I just hope that all the stuff they're showing off doesn't become too much and it becomes off-putting. Like, it stops being hype building and it just becomes a bit annoying or a bit daunting, if that makes sense. Maybe I'm just worrying and panicking for no reason. I am a bit of a pessimist. I like to say I'm an optimist or a realist, but I know I'm actually a bit of a pessimist. So I could just be worrying for nothing. Also, I realized talking, I actually did miss something, and I'm going to see if I can find it. Up here in the top, you can see a painting. It's hard to see here, but that is the Inquisitor's throne from Skyhold back in Dragon Age Inquisition. Though it seems Solus does miss his old life of traveling around with the Inquisitor and all of their friends, which is nice and incredibly sad and depressing for Solus. But in the end, this gameplay just still has me excited for Veilguard. Cannot wait to play it. Cannot wait to play a mage, especially because I love playing as mages. What do you think of this gameplay video? Has it got you more excited? Has it got you less excited? Do you now want to play the mage? Were you always sit on the mage, or were you always sit on rogue and now you're thinking mage? What do you think of the lighthouse? And what do you think of now the first kind of proper area we're able to explore scene? Because before this, we've only seen some linear areas with the start of the game and Weissopt. This is like the first proper area we're able to explore. What do you think of the Hossberg Wetlands? And of course, because it's my video, what do you think of my thoughts? Did I point anything you missed? Did I miss anything you noticed? Please do leave a comment below and let me know what you think. Like this video if you enjoyed it, check out some of my other videos, and do subscribe to the channel to stay up to date on all of my latest videos. Thanks for watching.